Hello, good evening, Facebook friends, revolutionaries, citizens of the planet and of America. Thanks for joining us for another fireside chat. And tonight I'm going to be talking with you about the Recount campaign and taking your questions. So I'll start off just by asking you again to like and share so we can get word out to our community about this really historic moment that we're in with incredible, despair, disgust, cynicism, you name it, coming out of this election. People are so primed to get to the bottom of this crisis, which has so many dimensions, but one essential dimension is our democracy, which has been so hijacked, in which we not only are subject to the controlling influence of big money in our elections, a corporate media which blacks out opposition candidates, but also, voter ID laws that keep people from voting, this interstate cross-check system that takes people off the voter rolls, and then a voting system in which we're using these electronic voting machines that are extremely hack-friendly and tamper-friendly and friendly to human errors. So all kinds of problems with this voting system. And in this election, we saw hacking all over the place. That is, the Democratic Party voter database. We saw the public voter databases, which are not, they're about the public. They are not open to public scrutiny, but they were hacked into in 20 states. 20 state databases were actually, attempts were made to hack. They were successful in at least 2 states, in Arizona and Illinois, and also private emails. So hacking all over the place, and a voting system which is basically an invitation to hack, and then some voting irregularities, a lot of extremely unanticipated results that were also in conflict with the exit polls that said that actually people expressed different voting patterns than what actually turned out. So throughout the election, whenever I was asked, would I stand up and support a recount campaign if there were significant questions raised about the validity of the results, I always said yes, no matter who the winner was, whether it was Gary Johnson or Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump, that if there was real doubts raised about the validity of our votes and the security of our voting system, that of course I would call for recounts and call for security and confidence in our votes. I don't think we get to confidence by sweeping these questions under the rug. We came out of this election with over 80% of voters saying they were disgusted with our voting system. When Donald Trump talked about the elections being rigged, that had enormous resonance. When Bernie Sanders talked about the economy being rigged, that had enormous resonance. And of course, the two go hand in hand. When we have a rigged political system, then we also have a rigged economy. It's not working for most people. Whether you look at our jobs, our entire generation of young people locked into predatory student loan debt, that's not going to get better. The skyrocketing costs of healthcare, the meltdown of the climate, the endless wars, which only get bigger, more costly as they bankrupt us, and they are not making us more secure. So it's not working out so well for us everyday people. And I think we ignore the corruption of our democracy at our peril. And let me say, I don't think I'm the only one to think that. I think that's why when we were approached by a group of election security experts and verified voting experts and the whole community of people who've been working for 10, 15 years to try to get a handle on these electronic voting machines and ensure that we have a vote we can have confidence in. when I was approached by them and they said, look, we think that there are real questions that have been raised about the security of our votes, we need a campaign that's willing to stand up and call for a recount here so we can find out. I said, well, of course, because this is something that has always been a major principle for me and actually has been a principle for the Green Party too. So I said, of course, and we moved ahead on very short order because we only had a little time. And we basically put up a website, a web page, and put out a press release. That was as much as we did, all of one day before our deadline, at which we had to basically raise $1.1 million. We had basically a day to do it in order to be able to do the filing in Wisconsin. Let me also add here that we started off with a fundraising goal of $2.5 million because that was going to be the cost of actually filing the fee, which is incredible that we have to file a fee. We have to pay $1 million to even find out if our vote was accurate, if our vote was secure. We, the voters, have to raise a ton of money just to find out if the vote was secure. I mean, this is really crazy. So we had to raise that, plus we had to hire a law firm that can take this case to court and do all the legal filings, etc., and be able to pay for the costs on the ground of running this race. So that's why we started off at $2.5 million. We thought this is really a Hail Mary to think we can raise that in 24 hours. And we not only raised it in 24 hours, we totally blew through the roof here in like 12 hours. We were well beyond 2.5 million. So at that point, we had laid out on this webpage that the costs were going to be more than 2.5 million. In fact, the total cost was going to be between 6 and 7 million. We actually detailed on our website at that point exactly what was the breakdown of the budget here and how it would be phased in over the course of the 3 states. And when we saw that people were raring to go, we said, wow, congratulations, you all are just amazing. You have organized the pants off of this thing, and we've broken through here in the course of 12 hours or even less, I think, and we're going for stage 2 now. So we then said, okay, stage 2, we're going for a total of 4.5 million. When we began to approach that, which was a little more than 24 hours, we said, oh my God, you are amazing. We're actually going to fund this whole thing before it starts. And at that point, we raised the fundraising goal to get us through this whole adventure here. So we raised it up to the 7 million. And, we had the great honor today of being called out by Donald Trump as being responsible for this. And I say I'm deeply honored to be considered responsible for this, but it really is a grassroots movement. When Donald Trump said that the election was rigged, a lot of people resonated with that, and they haven't changed their minds. It's not about who won. It's about what is the process here. So that is why we're in this. We are not in this to overturn the results of the election. If that happens, so be it. But we're here to ensure that we have votes that we can rely on, that are valid and that are secure, and on which we can then move forward and do other things to strengthen our democracy. So the first step is this very time-sensitive step to count the votes. But then after that, the next step, in fact, we're having a conference mid-February in Washington, D.C. called Democratize Our Elections. You're all invited. Please come. We're going to talk about what else it takes, because just counting the votes isn't going to do it. Put it this way, if we can't count the votes, then nothing else matters either. We got to do all this stuff. So this is our first time-sensitive step. And from there, then we move to several other campaigns, including opening up the debates, getting rid of this fake corporate commission on presidential debates run by the 2 corporate parties. Instead, we have a citizens debate commission so we can include all candidates who are on the ballot in enough states that they could actually win. That doesn't mean 20 candidates in this election. That would have meant 4 candidates, which is what people were screaming for. It also means ending voter disenfranchisement, voter ID, standing up for a constitutional right to vote. It means ending systems like this interstate cross-check, which is used to disenfranchise what looks like millions of voters, particularly from communities of color. It means ranked choice voting, so that when we have our votes, we can actually liberate our votes to carry our values and not simply come in and vote against the person we're most afraid of or against the person we dislike the most, which is what this fear-based voting, this lesser evil voting system forces us to do. Well, not all of us, but which intimidates many people into voting their fears. In my experience, when we share with people that we can actually vote based on our values, our desire for a Medicare for all single-payer system, on the right to a job, on living wages, on actually creating millions of jobs in green energy and a healthy and sustainable food system and public transportation, we can put workers first at the same time that we are putting the climate first and solve these problems hand in hand. We can stop bankrupting our budget on these insane wars for oil that only make us less secure and bankrupt us while we're at it. We got all these solutions. We can actually go out and vote for them instead of, voting for or against whoever you're most afraid of. When people hear that they could adopt this system, which the state of Maine just adopted, and shout out to Maine, thank you so much. Ranked choice voting, it lets you rank your choices. So if your first choice loses, your vote's automatically reassigned to your second choice, so that there will be no unintended consequences, no so-called splitting of the vote, no spoiling of the election. This is a win-win. This is what we're going to stand up for. This is the first step. And as you may know, Hillary Clinton, or her campaign, one of the spokespeople for her campaign, made a statement that they were going to support this recount effort, which is wonderful. We encourage people of all political persuasions to support this effort. And we encourage people who really support democracy to stand with us, not just in counting the vote, and to count the vote in all elections. So not just in the general, but also in the primary, where we and many others were egging for a recount or for a challenge to a vote that had just flagrant irregularities in the Democratic primary. So, we are glad to have the Clinton campaign's support, whatever form that takes. It's not clear exactly what form that will take, but we're really glad to have people of all political persuasions standing up for safeguards that will apply not just only in the general, but also in the primaries, and will apply to fraud, to tampering, to hacking, that puts us all at risk as voters, and that provides safeguards that no campaign will be the beneficiary. Not a Republican, not a Democrat, not a Green, not a Libertarian. No campaign will be the beneficiary of a very corruption-prone system. So we welcome that support, and we challenge anyone who supports democracy to also stand with us to open up the debates, to end voter disenfranchisement and voter ID and felon disenfranchisement as well. Stand with us for ranked choice voting so we can really liberate our votes and the power of our votes. People have also asked why the 3 states that we started with. So these were the states, that is Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan. These were the 3 states that the advocates, the people who follow this stuff intensively, for whom this is like a way of life 24/7, these were the 3 states, they are the 3 states that are most likely to reveal tampering or hacking if it in fact was going on. And you want to start where the money is, because if we find something here, then we will have a mandate to expand this to many other states. Some people have raised concerns that these are states in which there was a Republican victory. Unfortunately, these are the states that are most likely, these 3 states, which are all, in fact, they went Trump, they went unexpectedly Trump, and they went by very small margins. and they all have irregularities or vulnerabilities. For example, Wisconsin uses voting machines that have been outlawed. They are illegal to use them because they are so prone to tampering and hacking. They're an invitation, really, for malfeasance. Those are used in the state of Wisconsin. So that's one vulnerability in Wisconsin. One big vulnerability in Michigan is that there are a sky-high number of blank votes, which also raises real questions. Were those votes flipped and they were left blank? In Pennsylvania, virtually all, not quite all, but close to all of the voting machines are actually these electronic machines that have no paper trail. So if you were a hacker, this would be a great place to do it. Let me say finally, some people say there's no smoking gun, and if there's no smoking gun, what are you doing? Well, to that I would say, who in their right mind would not want assurance that we are counting the votes? You wouldn't get into an airplane that doesn't have a built-in safety mechanism, that doesn't have built-in quality assurance, doesn't have redundancy in its safety systems. You don't want to wait for the plane to start crashing to think, oh my goodness, I better do something. We should have this built into our voting system. Whether we find tampering or not, this is just an assurance that we should have, that we don't have to think about this, that there will be automatic cross-checks, automatic quality assurance in something as vital to our democracy as our voting system. Those assurances are, let's get rid of these electronic voting machines. Let's ensure that we are voting on something made out of paper that we can keep, that we can observe. Let's make sure that we have automatic audits so that we do a cross-check on these various counting machines and make sure that they are valid. And then finally, that we have an automatic recount in really close races. The state of New Mexico does this now after they began to take a very close look in 2004 because of the recount that was going on in Ohio. We were doing a recount in Ohio led by the Green Party because we were the ones to stand up for our rights as voters, our rights to have a democracy we can believe in. Well, the state of New Mexico also took this very seriously, and they then implemented a series of reforms, which I think are kind of model for what we need to be doing. This isn't rocket science. This is within our reach, and that gets us through, I think, the critical issues that we needed most to be talking about. I'm going to take a moment here and read some of your wonderful comments, and thank you. 1.6 thousand people are actually watching this right now live on a Saturday night. So this is awesome. Thank you. Wow, it's now 1.7. So like and share, and let's get the word out. We have the power. You have the power. You've totally blown people away. You know, there was a complete blackout or whiteout, you could call it, on our campaign, both before the election and after the election. And you've broken through. You've broken through by now, oh my goodness, now you're up to 1.8 thousand. We're practically setting a record here for simultaneous live views. So keep liking, keep sharing, and let's keep building our power here to take back the promise of our democracy. And that's what you have been doing. You've been blowing people away. I think we were at the top of, what was it, Yahoo News yesterday? I mean, we've been breaking through. We've been headliners in so much of the corporate media that refused to cover us during the campaign when we were a real threat. So, we now have the honor of being considered a threat to the political establishment, which is what the American people are clamoring for. So let's keep building our power. So Nate Worcester, I think the name is, says paper ballots with receipts. Exactly. Mariah Springstead says, good riddance trolls. Yes, we are. We have the honor of hosting lots of trolls these days. Another sign that you are a threat. Tony Sira says, let's support Standing Rock. It's Standing Rock who needs it. And let me say, yes, Standing Rock, absolutely. Another front line of democracy. And I encourage everyone who's listening tonight to please support Standing Rock. Standing Rock is in a real crisis right now, has been actually for centuries, as a matter of fact. The battles that indigenous people have been fighting against colonialism. Well, that has really come back in a big way right now as the Army Corps of Engineers prepares to occupy the camp and dismantle the camp. So stay tuned, and please send your support for medical supplies, for just the encampment, for their legal fees, for supporting the resistors who are going to jail for their civil disobedience. And go there if you can. Go there and support the indigenous leaders, our brothers and sisters who are standing up for the democracy we all depend on. Let's see. Yeah, okay. Anna Young is asking this very question. What about the Army Corps of Engineers? We say the Army Corps of Engineers needs to be denying the permit right now to the true trespassers here, which is the Dakota Access Pipeline. And Miguel Dawson says, yes, we will try. Okay, Tommy Furlong says, why didn't we take this on before the election, meaning verified voting and this fight for our democracy? And I will assure you, Tommy, that we have been working on this for many years. And in fact, you know, the Green Party led the charge in 2004, and we have continued to fight for election integrity, for voting systems that are reliable, that are audited, that have a paper trail, for ranked choice voting, for getting money out of politics. This really is the Green Party agenda. And that's why we've been fighting. That's why we were calling for an investigation during the primary as well, but we didn't have standing. You have to have been a candidate in that primary. So this is not new. This has been going on a long time, but what's new, I think, is the opportunity and the the determination and the commitment and the passion of voters to stand up now for something that we can do, which is positive, instead of just, lamenting and bemoaning this awful system. It's time for us to stand up and change this system and to own our democracy and to make it work for us. And here's Dennis Hansen saying that voter ID is a racist system that impacts predominantly the poor and other disenfranchised groups. And I want to shout out and agree with you completely. And that's why we really need to end voter ID and to clarify our constitutional right to the vote. And the minute we do that, then all these voter ID disenfranchisement laws go out the window. We will be talking about this and building the movement to actually take on all of these issues at our conference, which is next, actually in February. In the middle of February, stay tuned for an announcement about a conference called Democratize Our Elections, where we'll be building on our support in this campaign, in this recount campaign, that we will be building on your passion, your commitment, your leadership here to take back this promise of democracy and to create an America and a world that works for all of us. So thank you all so very much for being a part of this fireside chat tonight, and I look forward to continuing to work together, the heart and soul and voice of our frontline communities, standing up and leading the charge, as so many of you are. It's really an honor to be on your team. Thank you all so much for being a part of this tonight. And again, like and share, and let's keep building this movement to create an America and a world that works for all of us. All the best. Good night. Take care.